What is the last word? Wow, what a way to end the Old Testament. I want all of you to look at it and find it. The last word. If you're having trouble finding Malachi, it's just before births and marriages. If you're carrying a family Bible. Okay? All right? Everybody look at that, and you'll have it translated different ways. But what is the last word of Malachi? Curse. Anybody else have a different translation? Well, here is the warning, the promises that Malachi gives, but also the warnings that he gives, that there could be a time of cursing if you don't come back to the Lord. So get right with God is our summary for that book. Okay, I've given you a chart down below that in your notes of some key events in Haggai and Zechariah's ministry. 538, Cyrus decreed to rebuild Jerusalem, and the temple foundations built within 2 years, but then 536, the progress halts due to opposition. August 29, 520, Haggai's first sermon. And then September 21st, 520, the temple building resumed. October 17, 520, Haggai's second sermon. Then October, November of 520, Zechariah's ministry was begun. December 18, 520, Haggai's third and fourth sermons. And then February 15, 519, Zechariah's 8 visions. And then December 7, 518, there's a delegation from Bethel that is sent. You read about that in Zechariah 7. Do you remember Bethel? Pretty important place, wasn't it? And it was a center of worship for the north, wasn't it? On March the 12th, 515, the temple was dedicated. And that's recorded in Ezra 6. Now, the book of Esther happens between chapter 6 and 7 of the book of Ezra. So you have Ezra 1 through 6, and then you have the book of Esther, and then the rest of the book of Ezra, 7 through 12. I don't know if that's in your notes. I kind of doubt that it is. Probably be on the test, but it's not in your notes. Okay, we're going to move on to that intertestamental period. And so, here our dates are 536 to 420. 430. Should be 5. I've got the dates wrong there. Okay, it should be 430 to 5 BC. Yes. No, that was not to test whether or not you're paying attention. That was just a mistake. Okay, so 430 to 5 BC. And what are the scriptures written during this time? None. You do have some books that are written. You have some events, a political picture, Pharisees and Sadducees get going. The Hasmoneans and Maccabees, those are all kind of important. Whoops. Okay, well we're back to our notes here. Okay, so I want you to look at your notes at your first page, and there are some political changes that happened during that time. One is that Alexander the Great died in 332, and when he died, his kingdom was divided. That Greek Empire was divided into 4 sections, and they were ruled by his 4 generals. Now, 2 of them are very important as far as Israel is concerned. 2 of those generals. And so one of the generals is put in charge of Egypt and Palestine, and he was Ptolemy, and so then his followers and his people are called the Ptolemies. Now, there was a large group of Jews who had settled in Egypt, especially at a town called Alexandria. This is in the intertestamental period. They didn't all go back. Have you heard of the term the diaspora? That's a term that refers to the Jewish people in that period of time were scattered to different places. And so you had a group of them down here in Egypt, you had some in Syria, some in Palestine, some stayed in Persia, and they're just scattered all over. Well, this group down in Egypt is a very important group. They had a large community of Jewish people. And under the direction of the Ptolemies, Ptolemy ordered the translation. He actually was the one who ordered the translation of the Hebrew Scriptures into Greek. Isn't that something? How God moved in the hearts of people? But he actually ordered that. And so you have the LXX. That's the Roman numerals for what number? 70. We still have people that know Roman numerals. I'm surprised. We haven't used those for a long time. Did you learn Roman numerals in school? I didn't think so. I think that you did?
A little bit.
You did a little bit.
I can't remember.
Okay. All right. Gabby, how about you? Have you learned Roman numerals? Nope. Has it fallen all by the wayside in the educational process? Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Now, there's a tradition. How reliable it is, I'm not absolutely positively sure about, but let me go down here a little ways. I think I put my notes for this at the wrong spot. Yes, I did. Okay. So the tradition is that 72 scholars produced that translation under the sponsorship of Ptolemy, Philadelphus, in about 250 BC. And they all gathered on an island near Alexandria, Pharos, and translated it, it is said, in 72 days, hence the name 70. Now, actually, what happened probably was just the Torah. The first 5 books were translated at that time, and then other books of the Old Testament were translated into Greek. So when Jesus quotes the Old Testament Scripture, he sometimes quotes from the Septuagint. And it became a very, very important document. Now, what happened was that attached to the Septuagint and published with it was frequently some other books written during that intertestamental period, and one book that was written after Christ. And those books were called the Apocrypha. And the Apocrypha derives its name, is a Greek word meaning hidden. And so there were a variety of books and in the Apocrypha, and the one thing we want to say about them is they were not inspired. You say, well, how do you know they weren't inspired? Well, I have a copy of the Apocryphal books in my office, and if you want to read them, you're welcome to, and you won't get very far, and you'll say, oh, I see why Pastor Jerry said these aren't inspired. They're pretty fanciful, and obviously written, several of them by people with quite an imagination. And so here are some of the books that are in that. The first and second books of Esdras. Trying to find my cursor here. And several other books. Anyway, those were written, and they were part of then they were included with the scriptural books, and the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church gave them a lot of authority, but didn't give them the same rank as the 66 books of the Old and New Testament. But because they included it, and because they put a lot of weight on those, I mean, you have books like you've got historical books that are in there that would help us with some of the things. First and Second Maccabees are in there, and they help us with that period of time. But you've got like the last chapters of the book of Esther and other things. It's pretty fanciful reading. Interesting, but fanciful. You know, there's a dragon, and just some very interesting things. So those are books then that are written in that intertestamental time. Now I want you to go back to this page, intertestamental, and we've got Alexander the Great, and Greece loses its supremacy in 323 when Alexander dies, and then his 4 generals take over different parts, and so it's the Ptolemies that are in charge of Egypt and Palestine. And then in Syria was ruled, and also quite a bit of Asia Minor, ruled by the Seleucids, another one of the generals of Alexander. Now, the Seleucids finally conquered the Ptolemies. They were at war with each other, and they finally conquered the Ptolemies.